Hello. Good morning, everyone. My name is Pedro. I'm from Meta. I'm a software engineer. Very excited to be here, welcoming everyone, being able to open VeloxCon one more time. I only put a few slides together, just give an overview about where we are, some of the things we're doing inside Velox, and just share a few thoughts on where we are and kind of path forward related to open source. So thanks everyone for joining. I know it's kind of hard to take time out of your weekend, but we really appreciate everyone from being here. I spent last night using AI to improve my slides, as you can see. I dare you to see which ones I use and which ones I didn't use. You see. Just as a quick background, we're organizing VeloxCon. That's actually the 4th time we're organizing this. We try to organize VeloxCon every year. So we held it 3 times in the US, usually around April. And every time we organize in the US, we discuss that it's kind of harder for the Chinese community. Like we have a lot of people from China who contribute to the project, who are kind of active, answering PRs, kind of helping fixing bugs. But I mean, it's really tough for people to travel all the way over. Time zones are kind of hard, right? So it's we never had an event kind of focused to this community. So last time we held VeloxCon in April, we had a discussion that if anyone was willing to host it, kind of physically have a space, it would come. And we're really happy that Ant Group was willing to do so. So we're really happy about being just able to hold VeloxCon here for the Chinese community. I hope that's just the first event of many, but that's the first time we're organizing this. So it's great to see so many people. So again, just thanks for joining. Also, thanks for Ant Group. Thanks, Nadia, for kind of organizing and putting all of this together. Thanks for IBM for helping kind of support. Ali, she couldn't come here today, but she was kind of the person helping put all of this together. So appreciate all the organizers. Thanks, Jialiang. Thanks, Meng, who's hiding somewhere. Thanks all the organizers for putting this together. It really kind of takes a village, but it's it's amazing when you see that work. Yeah, just kind of recapping a little bit about the things we've been doing as Velox community and inside Meta. So we started Velox in 2020. We spent a whole lot of time as kind of the main or the first integration inside Meta and just integrating Velox inside Presto. So we have many of you, we have a few talks in the morning and the afternoon about Prestissimo, about just kind of how to use Velox to accelerate Presto. So we spent, I think, a couple of years just doing that, making sure that everything is reliable, testing, and rolling out this inside Meta. We're getting to a point where the rollout is complete inside Meta. I think the last number I got from Eric and from the team is that today we run about 99.9% of all Presto workloads in Presto already. And we're about to close this in the next month or so once the last geospatial functions are in. Right? So I think we're getting to a point where the Presto integration is pretty much done. And we're moving to Spark. So Spark, I know the community has done a whole lot more work with Gluten. We're now starting to get a little more serious about this inside Meta. We're starting to test it and to roll out some initial Spark workloads inside Meta using Gluten and using our PySpark integration, but that's pretty much a work in progress. So from our perspective, I think from the Velox community, we've already been looking to this for a while, but from Meta's perspective, just rolling out to our Spark clusters more generally, that's one of the main directions. The second main direction is just using Velox for training data loading. As you all know, we're on the AI age, so training models, it actually takes a lot of power and a lot of efficient systems to be able to pull and feed this data to the actual trainers. So that's another space where we're doing a lot of work and we have a lot of focus internally inside Meta, just this idea of how can we accelerate loading data into trainers. I put a little kind of star at the end because those are sort of the 3 main integrations from like an efficiency perspective, just because there's a lot of servers that go into powering those things. But you have a lot of other integrations into systems to do things like stream processing, to do log analytics, to do real-time processing. So we have a lot of kind of other smaller integrations just from a sort of size and footprint perspective, but they're just as important. So when we say we're integrating Velox into all those systems, right, this is more or less what you mean. Velox is on the sort of the execution layer, but it's not the bottom of the stack. So usually what those systems do is that you have some sort of front end. So you have SQL parsers, you have data frame APIs, you have things that do type binding, analyze your query optimization. Velox you use, of course, to execute those plans, but usually there's a sort of a runtime environment where those things are executed. Of course, when you do this in Presto, you're usually looking at a system that looks more like a service, where the servers are already running, so it's a little more optimized for latency. When you look at Spark, you look at RDD and kind of dispatching really large-scale systems. The training data loading runtime is a lot more focused on keeping GPUs fed, right? So you have sort of different runtimes that are very different depending on what type of compute or what type of computation you're trying to achieve. But in the end of the day, they're just different environments that look at Velox. What we started to realize a couple of years ago is actually if you look up the stack, there's a lot of commonalities as well. There's a lot of problems, a lot of code repetition and things like that. I'm not going to get into too many details, but as a sort of a sibling project to Velox, we're also starting a project called Axiom, where the idea is similar to Velox, like this idea of composable data systems and kind of unifying common parts of the data systems into a library, but for things that are needed for the front end of systems. So Masha's here, she's gonna give you the whole spiel about what Axiom is. But the idea is essentially using the same idea of composable systems, but for building front end. And then you can have things like SQL parsers, you can have things like implementations of PySpark and Spark Connect APIs. You can even in the future have things like natural language APIs. But this idea of sort of unifying how you represent queries, how you parse, how you interpret, and how you optimize queries. So this is like one of the big directions. It's a project that is tightly related to Velox, but it's not necessarily Velox, right? It's just kind of using the same composability and same sort of idea of building composable and reusable components into the space. This is another area Masha's going to talk to you, tell you all about this project. This is where I stopped with the whole AI thing. Yeah, so there's a couple of things we're doing at Velox. One is Axiom, which is a project related to Velox, but not necessarily that, right? Like I said, we're also doing a lot of improvements and new things in the whole training data, using Velox for training data loading. One of the interesting things we're doing is just feature normalization, which means like doing very efficient index lookup joins and pulling data. When you're loading this data for training, enriching features and pulling data from key lookup, from key value stores and things like that. Mung is going to give you a full talk about everything we're doing for feature normalization. Of course, when you talk about training, you're talking about processing data in Velox vectors and at some point converting those things into PyTorch tensors or into TensorFlow. So there's a lot of discussions on what exactly those APIs look like, how do you convert those things efficiently, how do you map different types of vectors and different encodings to tensors. So that's an area that we haven't done a whole lot of work, but it's something that we're starting to look at more closely. Another thing that we saw that's really important in this space of training data loading is just when you have very complex and very long DAGs with maybe potentially dozens or hundreds of different stages and complex expressions, how do you actually debug problems or data problems in the stack? So we're also looking at specifically for training data loading, what are the different APIs and things that we can provide as Velox to enable people to debug those things more efficiently. So there's a whole lot of things inside the space of using Velox closer to training platforms. There's also a lot of work being done by the community just on GPU support. If you guys are working closely with the Velox community, you know that NVIDIA and IBM publish this really nice post on just how to leverage and how to integrate libcuDF into Velox. Zoltan will probably talk to you a lot more about this. But there's another thing that's happening, just kind of expanding for different types of hardware. We're also doing work very closely with ARM just to make sure that Velox is optimized for different hardware platforms and things like that. Another thing that we announced at VeloxCon earlier this year, but it's also kind of quite cool. We just launched this new PyVelox Python bindings. It's not something meant for end users to actually be using to process data, but if you work at Velox and if you need to debug things, if you want to kind of test, or if you want to do any quick benchmarks at Velox, it's kind of quite handy. So you can just pip install something. We can just run kind of Python code. It's a very thin layer on top of Velox, but it's kind of handy and useful for benchmarking and things like that. If you want to do it, just pip install PyVelox. There's a lot more things we're doing, just increasing coverage for Presto functions, increasing coverage for Spark functions, a lot more testing, just a lot of more performance. There's a lot of work we're doing just to kind of continue making sure that the way we process data is state of the art. One of the things that we're doing with a partnership with the community, I think Duan is somewhere around here. We're doing some analysis on this idea of hybrid containers. We got from some people and from the community that potentially the way we process data by converting columns into row containers could be more efficient if we did that in a slightly different way. So we're working on a full blog post to kind of share some of the details. The spoiler is that we tried that. It actually is a lot worse. But we're going to share at least the experience. I have a few more minutes. Just want to share where we are on this whole kind of open source journey and some of the things we have planned next. But as most of you know, we started the project around 2020. We open sourced this about 2 years later in 2022. And from that point on, we started working with many companies and many people from the community. We started getting actually quite a lot of engagement. We worked in the early days with Intel, with people from IBM who came from Ahana. So as we started getting more people, more contributions, there was a lot of discussions on just kind of having more clarity on how the community operates, how do we make decisions, how do we make technical decisions and things like that. So last year, we spent some time actually kind of clarifying and writing down the decision-making process, like who makes decisions, who are sort of different owners from different components. This was already published, we already shared with the community, right? But you have this document that in case you haven't seen it, I recommend you go and read it. That's sort of the Velox constitution, like how this works, how decision-making goes, and things like that. We also spent some time just kind of clarifying who are the people responsible for different parts or different components of the project. So we had this wiki, but this page where we specify what are the different components and who are the people who are actually maintaining those different parts of the code. Not just that, but who are the people sort of responsible for making sure that the components is healthy, that it has a nice design, and then kind of making sure the code gets reviewed and things like that. So if you ever, if you don't know who to reach out for a specific question or for a specific component, make sure you take a look at this wiki page. We also, this year, we onboarded quite a few new maintainers. We had, I think, about 5 new people. Shane Chang and Christian from IBM, they're maintainers as well. Kartikian from NVIDIA, it's also a maintainer who's helping with the sort of libcuDF integration. Kay and Jen from IBM and Microsoft, they're also now maintainers helping with sort of the Spark bindings and the gluten integration. So we're expanding, we're clarifying what are the different roles and trying to onboard more people to sort of help scale and accelerate the project. We clarify all those things. So I think today the maintainers already have sort of authority to review code and to accept what gets in. But because the tooling is still sort of tangled with Meta's tooling, we need someone from Meta to actually merge this code. So now we're starting discussing about a couple of months ago how we can actually fix this and kind of untangle the Meta CI from GitHub CI, basically moving the project to being GitHub first as any other open source project. There's a lot of discussions here just to make sure that we have the same CI, that we have parity on the tests we run internally versus the tests we run on GitHub. So this is something we've been working on the last couple of months. We're getting close to that point. We're actually hoping that we could announce this at the conference, but it's still going to require maybe another month or so. But I think now, end of 2025, early 2026, we're moving to this mode where you can actually start merging things on GitHub directly. Of course, based on maintainers, based on people who actually have context on those things, but I think that's the kind of the idea of moving to that part. We're going to announce, we're going to kind of have more communication around this, but this is something that's coming. The other discussions we're coming is just moving forward, what is sort of the long-term governance for the project. So if we want to make sure that Velox is kind of something that stays relevant long-term, what is the right sort of governance and how do we make sure that the project is still healthy and alive? So we're starting discussions on what are the right software foundations, what are the right models for the project moving forward. I don't have any details to share on that yet, but this is something we're going to communicate soon. Like that's the direction where we're going. And with that, I think I'm pretty much on time. Yeah, just want to, again, thanks everyone for coming. Thanks for all the speakers. We have a day filled pretty much to every single minute with great talks. So yeah, Thanks everyone for coming. Hope we enjoyed the day. Also use this opportunity to meet your peers, make connections, talk to other people working on the project. I think that's kind of the whole point of the conference, is not just sitting down and learning, but actually making connection and talking to your peers. So again, thanks everyone for coming, and appreciate and hope you enjoyed the conference.